Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast. Now, normally I'd be reviewing DVDs or Big Finish audios or any of that sort of thing. But you see, I've been wondering of late. I've been wondering why we love Doctor Who so much. Now, I need to split this up into small groups. Why is it such a passion? And why do we exhibit certain sorts of, well, as far as the outside world is concerned, slightly odd psychological tendencies? Perhaps I need to split the world into two very distinct groups. Fans of old school Doctor Who, the original series, the classic series, the stuff that stopped being made in 1989. And fans of the new series. No, that's not quite true. It would be fans of the new series who are children. People who it's actually aimed at. As we all know, its creators originally saw Doctor Who as something, well, to fill in some time in the schedules. A children's show that would educate and inform. Yes, a children's show. Or more specifically something new, a family show. Something that would appeal to everyone. Something that could be watched together. Now, over the last 50 years, the family has, well, disintegrated, developed different viewing habits, fragmented. People no longer watch TV all gathered round one solitary set. TV is not an immediate event. TV is no longer ephemeral. That was the world Doctor Who was born into, and we have to accept that. So why do we love a programme? Why, for example, are we passionate about this and nobody's made a slightest attempt to bring back Adam Adamant Lives, Department S, or a host of other 60s shows? Even the idea of a John Steed character existing these days doesn't quite hit the mark. Nobody's campaigning for a return of the Avengers. That's the UK Avengers. No. Even Blake 7, admittedly one of the greatest shows ever made, had its day. Yes, I know we have arguments about Doctor Who having its day, but what is it that makes us love it? I've got several theories, and let's face it, the dissertation I did for my degree was why do people love the X-Files? But the question really isn't why do people love something, it's why do they still love Doctor Who? There was at least 10, maybe 15 years where all we had was the past. All we had was stuff we'd already seen, already experienced, and yet we still loved it. We still watched it profusely. Now, some people talk about their favourite episodes or their favourite eras, their favourite doctors. Most people's favourite doctor is the doctor they grew up with. That's the reason that Tom Baker is so popular, because he was the doctor for so long, and therefore most people were growing up with him, if that makes sense. We can now look back with older and slightly less childlike eyes and make value judgments on who's a great doctor or not. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something on a purely emotive level. So yes, we have to take into consideration the whole sitting round together watching something as a family. But I've got another theory. I've got lots and lots of theories, as I said earlier. One of the important things about Doctor Who is that many of its episodes are missing. Bear with me. It actually makes it more sought after. We know the chances of us ever being able to own, possess, and indeed see these episodes is almost non-existent. Of course, there isn't a single Doctor Who fan alive who's willing to admit that. Everyone has some, what's that word? That terrible thing that makes people's lives hell. Hope. Yeah, everyone has hope that one day in one garage everything's going to turn up. And yeah, I'm just as guilty as the next man for believing this. I also know it's very, very unlikely. So yeah, the non-existence of various stories is actually part of, for me, the reason that a lot of people are fixated on Doctor Who. They'll never be able to possess, to own everything. I hail from a time when there wasn't much merchandise. One of my greatest possessions as a child was the spinny cardboard TARDIS, where you would put the Tom Baker looking doll in, spin it round, press one of the buttons on the top and he would vanish or come back. Except the side where he'd vanished was a quarter of the size of the side where you'd put the doll. Sorry, action figure. I am digressing, and that's kind of the point. That's what Doctor Who's about. It's about digressing. It's about going off topic. So let me put it this way. We have a personality who likes to own everything, who likes to have seen everything, who likes to recreate the sensations that they experienced as a child of watching this together, or indeed having escapism, because Doctor Who is escapism. That's a purely emotive theme. On top of this, we have the sort of personality who would like to gather everything in, and they're the sort of people, because the BBC have lost our prized possessions, want to become the curators themselves. They want to look after it themselves, and because they can't have the episodes, they want to learn everything about it, almost recreate perfectly for themselves. There is, of course, many more aspects to this. There's the social aspects of when you get older, making the connections. When Doctor Who wasn't popular, you could connect with another fellow Doctor Who fan on a level that would exclude everyone else. You wouldn't need to be one of the cool kids because you had your own little private language. Like the strange twins who chat to each other, you could communicate and have in-jokes. And of course, many of us are quite creative. If the merchandise doesn't exist, we make it ourselves. There was a joke told by Blake Sevencast that they could always tell the difference between one of the props that were made by a fan and one of the props made by Uncle Matt Irvine and his minions. The BBC stuff seldom worked. The stuff made by the fans almost always did. So yeah, we have passions, our imaginations are fired, and they head off in this direction. Eventually, of course, the VHSs became available, and we could own things ourselves. DVDs would follow, slightly clearer, slightly more pedantic. People could watch things in even more depth and more detail. I wish I knew where this conversation was going, but to be honest, I made a handful of notes and just set my course. So yes, it's no wonder that there are people out there who filled their lives getting things like old Radio Timeses, and the man turning around saying, "This is worth a £5, and in 40 years this has become, 10 times its worth." It's not about the money. It's not about getting something to sell eventually. It's never been about that. It's about holding on to something, holding on to pure, raw emotions, informative years, things that we experienced, recreating times. And of course, as we recreate them, we move on with new friends and we experience new things. One of my all-time favourite memories is watching an episode of Doctor Who, watching Rose before it's shown on the BBC. A friend downloaded it because my PC just wasn't up to it. I went round to my mate Andy's house and we sat on the edge of his bed and we watched it on his PC because his was up to spec and could watch a copy. We watched it together. My best friend, Andy, is no longer with us, but that memory will always stay with me. New memories created by Doctor Who, and that memory is a happy memory. So whenever I revisit Rose, it's always got that link. And that's what Doctor Who does. It taps into your emotional core. There is no way we can let go. There is no way we can deny this. So we don't. We meet at conventions and we talk about things. Another of my favourite memories is watching Dalek. But watching Dalek in a room full of people. A room full of convention goers at a Firefly convention. He did at the time tell us not to tell anyone or talk about it on the internet. My God, if we'd only had Twitter in those days. So Doctor Who these days just taps into exactly the same emotional base. And we go on. We love it because it makes us feel like children, because it is childlike and it is perfect. And yet it is not perfect, just like being an adult. And like family, we'll love it no matter what. Because bad Doctor Who is better than anything else. And good Doctor Who is the greatest television ever made. But then again, I'm biased. And so are you. Did I make any sense there? Probably not. Be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are copyright of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. To order, or simply find out more about the book Whostrology, the Time Traveller's Almanac, visit whostrology.com. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance. I just want to say that Hooverville 4 is coming up on us very, very soon. September the 1st. There'll be a lot of podcasters there. Peter Purvis, Louise Jameson, and lots of people who've been in Doctor Who. The atmosphere is wonderful. It's small but perfectly formed as a convention. Type in Hooverville 4 into a search engine and see who's coming. And why don't you come too? And we'll see you there.